WiSP Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the WiSP Sports Desk. I'm Chris Stafford.
And I'm Nancy Gillen.
And you are where again, Nancy? Still in Eastern Russia?
Yep, I'm still in Yekaterinburg for the Men's World Boxing Championships. Coming to an end now, so I'll be home soon.
Good. We'll catch you back in the UK then next time. How has it been going for you? Because it's been quite intense, isn't it? You've been doing daily blogs from the competition.
Yep. So it's been live blogs every day, but it's getting quite exciting now because we're at the semi-final and gold medal bout stage, and I've got quite invested in each boxer really. So it's getting quite exciting to see who's actually going to win.
Cool. All right. Well, you can follow that, of course, on insidethegames.biz, where you can find all of Nancy's blogs. And some of those we're going to be covering today here on the WiSP Sports Desk. But we're going to kick off with golf, Nancy, because the big story coming out of women's golf this week is, of course, that Europe regained the Solheim Cup. And that was by the very narrowest of margins after the USA missed a crucial putt, which could have retained the title for them. But talk about a fantastic competition. I don't know if you saw any of it. I know you've been really busy, but I just watched a lot of the highlights, and it was just so intense. And there was so much at stake and right down to the wire. But we talk about coverage of women's sports and how people don't want to watch it. You know, there were huge crowds watching that.
Yeah, there were, and like you said, I have been quite busy, but it without even kind of seeking it out, I was aware of what was happening because the coverage was so great, and I was seeing about it on social media, which was amazing, really. And like you said, so many people, I think it was 90,000, I think it was a record-breaking crowd. And just coincidentally today, I just Googled it to see how much a ticket costs, and I think for a day, to go for the day, the minimum price was £40. So, you know, people are paying that amount to go and watch women play sport, women play golf, which I think is incredible. And some people say, give out free tickets so you get big crowds, but you've got people there paying quite a lot of money to go and watch women play sport, which is great. And I'm glad it was entertaining as well, because, you know, it's even more reason hopefully people will come back and keep watching.
Yes, I hope so. You know, as you say, terrific media coverage, fantastic sport. I mean, really, regardless of gender, that was really, really exciting sport. And well done to Europe for regaining that title, because they really put on quite a show for everybody. So great for not just for golf, but for women's sport in general, because, you know, the tide rises for everyone, doesn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Well, lots more stories. You know, we talked last week about Briana Williams, the Jamaican runner, the sprinter, who is facing a dope test now, failed dope test. And there's another South African sprinter this time, Carina Horn, who's been suspended. And I think you've got another story too. There's a few now that are up in the air now. The World Championships, of course, they start next week, the 27th of September in Doha. But what was interesting about the Briana Williams story was the Jamaican Athletics Federation. They've actually selected her, very confident that she will pass that test.
Yep, so she's been put in the team. I think her hearing they were trying to get an expedited hearing so she'd have time to be cleared if she is innocent and then train. But her hearing now is on the 23rd, so that's only 4 days before the World Championships start. But she's been named in the team anyway, I think, with the principle that of innocence until proven guilty, really. So the idea that, if she is innocent, she'll still be able to compete, which I do suppose is kind of fair enough, because it will be good, obviously, if she is innocent, then, you know, it would be a shame that she'd be missing the World Championships, seeing as she is such a young talent. But yeah, I think it's quite a lot of faith. I think it'd be interesting, say, if you know that was a Russian athlete, you know, maybe that there would have been more criticism about that decision because it's kind of just been accepted. But I guess we'll see what happens, because, well, like I said, if she does, you know, pass the hearing, it'd be really good to see her at the World Championships. So in that sense, it might be quite a good decision.
Now, what about Carina Horn then? She's been suspended too, the South African sprinter.
Yep, so she's failed for a growth hormone, and then another drug which usually treats conditions such as muscle wasting. So she's definitely just been ruled out because there definitely won't be time to have a hearing and her compete. So I believe she's a South African record holder over 100 meters. So she was probably, I imagine the South African Athletics Federation will be very disappointed that that's happened. So it looks like there's another, it looks like she's definitely missing out. We have the third case as well, which is a sprinter from Trinidad and Tobago, Michelle Lee. I'm not sure how you say her surname. It's Ayhe, maybe I. So she is actually the reigning Commonwealth Games champion over the 100 meters, and she got silver at the Pan American Games last month. So she won't be. She hasn't failed a doping test, but she's failed to appear for a doping test 3 times, which results in a ban. So something similar happened to the American sprinter Christian Coleman last month, and he got away with it because they backdated one of the doping tests that he missed, so it fell outside of the 12-month window. But I'm not sure whether she'll be able to do this because I think he was quite lucky with the dates of the tests that he missed. So it looks like she also won't be at the World Championships. So it's a bit of a shame because you want to start getting excited about the competition, and at the moment there's just a lot of news about what talent is not going to be there because they've failed doping tests and so on.
Yeah, absolutely, and it really does distract from the real news itself, the actual performance. Hopefully that will be all behind us before we get to Doha, and that's coming up pretty quickly next week. And you wrote, we spoke last week about the Iranian Football Federation and that horrible story about the female fan who set fire to herself. That was making the headlines. Now you wrote an update on this, didn't you? Just last week.
Yeah, so I wrote a blog about it, kind of just saying that I think FIFA needs to take a harder line with the Iranian Football Federation because FIFA president Gianni Infantino, he's said himself that Iran at the moment are going against FIFA's human rights policy essentially. So I don't quite see why they're still at the moment, kind of an active member. I think FIFA as well have the power to make a difference maybe. I think if they suspended the Football Federation and say the Iranian men's team couldn't compete in the World Cup qualifiers, that would be quite a big blow. So maybe, that would actually help make a change in Iran. But I don't think they will do it. I think FIFA, I think they say things and then they never actually do them in terms of kind of stuff like human rights and so on. I mean, if you just look at the World Cup in Qatar and you've got workers dying and FIFA don't really care. So I'm not really expecting to see them do anything about it, to be honest.
I wonder what it would take because, the one thing obviously is a ban that would really affect their men's team, right? If FIFA did suspend Iran, and that would be so big that it might, obviously it would catch their attention, seriously catch their attention. But I'm wondering, if that's the worst case scenario in a way, because everybody loses, right? If they did that. Without the Iranian Football Federation actually doing something about their own domestic situation here as regard to women fans attending the games. But I'm wondering, I mean, if that happened, let's just say, hypothetically that happened, women would still be at risk though, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I think previously there's been times where they've let a certain amount of women into a match, or they've kind of had 100 or so, and then there's been a backlash against it. So they've had, last year there were I think 2 games where they let some women in, and then this year there's just been more arrests of women that are trying to get into other matches. And I think probably the issue with it is that it's kind of it's like a cultural, religious thing. It's just very embedded into kind of their attitudes there. so even if, FIFA kind of enforced it, I don't think it would stop. Say if women went to matches, I don't think it would stop them being harassed or, potentially still arrested. I don't think that would end really. I think we're probably going to have to wait a few more years for, attitudes. Hopefully they will change, but it might be more a case of time rather than anything, which is a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we'll keep that. Obviously, keep you up to date here on the WiSP Sports Desk with any more developments there as we have them. And the other story over here on this side of the pond came out of Canada this last week, and I think you covered it on Inside the Games too, was the story about the bobsleigh champion. She's a double Olympic champion, Kaillie Humphries. She's been a stalwart of the sport for so long now. And she is accusing the federation there, Bobsleigh Canada, of abuse, verbal and mental abuse. Now, the one thing that she has threatened to do is, and she's quite serious about this, is jumping ship, but literally, and wanting to resume her career in the US, so leaving Canada behind. So that's a big story for us over here as the winter sports start to pick up. Very soon, the World Cup season will get underway for them. Have you been following that story at all, Nancy?
Yeah, I've had a look at it because I've also noticed the US Olympic Committee themselves are also starting to really crack down on abuse cases. So it's quite interesting and something I think you see quite a lot. For some reason, you see quite a lot of it in winter sports. Like there's quite a big problem with it in stuff like speed skating and figure skating. And I mean, I feel sorry for her because it seems like she's kind of being backed into a corner almost, where she's, obviously probably tried other methods of getting it sorted, and now she's kind of had to. I imagine this is probably her last resort to say that she doesn't want to compete for her country where she's won Olympics. I think that would definitely be one to watch as well, because it'd be interesting to see what Canada do to deal with it, and whether they actually step up and do something and try to sort the situation out.
Yeah, well, they are facing her lawsuit now, suing them for alleged blocking her release from the team and breaching their contract related to that athlete and coach code of conduct. So we'll follow that, keep you posted here, of course. Now, you also, going back to athletics real quick, you've got a story on the relocation of the women's 800 metres medal. That's a story I hadn't been following. What do you have on that, Nancy?
Yeah, so this is this is going to happen at the World Championships. So the bronze medals from the women's 800 metres at the 2011 and 2013 World Championships are going to be, sorry, all the medals are, but this is about the woman that's going to get the bronze medal. So the Russian woman who won that competition she's basically been found out to have used drugs at the time. So that medal has been taken away from her and everyone else is moving up. So it's actually Caster Semenya that's getting the gold medal from that. She's not going to the World Championships to pick it up. Yeah, so she's not going to go and get the medals. But this American middle distance runner, Alisa Montana, she is going to get the bronze medals in Doha. And it's just quite an interesting story because she's actually thanked the Russian whistleblower, Yulia Stepanova, who made the comments about, she kind of exposed a lot of the Russian doping that's gone on. So this woman that's going to get the bronze kind of thanked this Russian whistleblower for the fact that she's now going to go and get her medals. But yeah. That's going to be happening in Doha next week. Okay. So that'd be quite interesting to watch.
Yeah, we'll follow that. Yeah, exactly. And Caster's, of course, is another story which we're keeping you updated with here as that unfolds, because she's putting on her football boots for now, and we'll see what else she does on the track. So you've got a skateboarding story too, and that involves a bronze medal.
Yes, Sky Brown, she's raised in Japan. She's got a British father and a Japanese mother, but she has decided to compete for Britain in skateboarding, which of course is going to be at the Tokyo 2020 Olympics. But what's interesting about her is that she's 11 years old. So I've heard a lot about her over the past year, and I've heard that she has the potential of competing at Tokyo, but I wasn't actually sure. I didn't know whether she was just getting a lot of coverage because she was 11 years old and she was competing at a relatively high event. But she's actually got bronze at the World Championships now, which I think, personally, I think is incredible. Like, I think at 11, I was just, just starting secondary school. I wasn't really doing anything like that. So it's quite really impressive. And that's given her points to help her qualify for Tokyo. And in which case, if she did qualify, she'd be the youngest female Summer Olympian since 1968, I think, and she'd be the youngest British Summer Olympian ever of all time. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with her and whether she manages to qualify. But yeah, I'm very impressed that she got a bronze world medal at 11 years old. I think that's just amazing.
Well, that begs the question if there is a minimum age requirement for the Olympics. Now, I thought there was, but obviously, like gymnastics particularly, they're very young.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there would be, and I thought it'd be something like 13 maybe, but I mean, obviously there isn't. I don't know. She seems to be able to hold her own, and I've seen in interviews she's confident, but it's not like she's you can tell she's still a child, which I think is good. She hasn't really got carried away with it all. So I think she might be 12 by the time that Tokyo comes around. So maybe that is the age limit. I'm not too sure.
Okay, well, we'll look into that because now we're both curious as to what that minimum age is for the Olympic Games. One final story before we go, and that's in BMX. What happened there at the Urban Games?
Yeah, so that involved Hannah Roberts, who is just probably one of the best female BMXers at the moment. So the Urban Games were in Budapest the weekend just gone, and it's the first time they've ever held the competition, and to be honest, it looked really cool. It was just kind of skateboarding, BMX, parkour, stuff like that. But Hannah Roberts, she won BMX gold, but she managed to do it without her kit or her bike because it didn't arrive in Budapest, so I think it got lost in Chicago airport. So she did the qualifying event in other people's kit. Apparently, she borrowed the bike off one of her teammates, and then her competitors lent her bits of kit, which is quite a nice story. So she topped qualifying, and then she managed to get her bike and stuff back for the final, which she then won. But yeah, I thought that's just quite a funny story. But I think she's definitely one to look out for at Tokyo.
Yeah.
Because every event I've seen with BMX, she's won. She's only 18, but she's winning gold medals left, right, and centre. So I imagine she'll do really well next year.
Fabulous. There's a talent to look out for then. Hannah Roberts in the BMX, and we're doing that as Tokyo approaches. Lots more story, of course, coming up here on WiSP Sports News Desk every week here with Nancy Gillen. Wherever you are in the world, Nancy, where will you be next week?
Next week, I think I will be at home. I'll be in England then.
Okay, cool. All right, well, we'll catch up with you then. In the meanwhile, you can follow Nancy on InsideTheGames.biz, where she writes a blog, and tell them where your social media is, where they can follow you, Nancy.
Yeah, well, my Twitter handle is @Nancy_Gillen.
All right, that's easy enough. And we, of course, are at WiSP Sports, so we'll be back next week with more from the WiSP Sports Desk. Until then, thanks for listening. Goodbye for now.